So, let's take a look at a single day's headlines from all around the world. Now, if you look at them one by one, they seem like separate tragedies, diplomatic shifts, internal crises. But when you put them all together, they start to paint this picture of a global system that's under some serious pressure. What we're going to do today is connect the dots and see how these seemingly random events might actually be linked. Let's get into it.
All right, we're going to start with a story that's just immediate and visceral. It's a powerful reminder that sometimes the forces at play are completely out of our control. We're starting in Afghanistan.
So, this number just popped up in headlines overnight, 800 plus, and it's a gut punch, a stark figure that represents an immediate and very human tragedy.
And here's the context for that number. This isn't a statistic from some long-running conflict. This is the instant death toll from one single catastrophic natural event.
And when you dig into the details, it's just heartbreaking. We're talking about a 6.0 magnitude quake. Beyond the hundreds killed and the thousands injured, you have entire villages that have been completely wiped off the map. And to make things even worse, nature itself is complicating the crisis. Landslides and heavy rain are literally blocking rescuers from getting to people. It's prompted the UN to call for urgent international aid because this is a real race against time.
So, we're shifting gears now, from a natural disaster to crises that are entirely man-made. Here, the violence is deliberate and the fallout is really shaking up international norms. Okay, so now we're in Lviv, Ukraine, and this is a totally different kind of violence we're talking about here. This was no random act. This was a targeted political killing, and it has these deep geopolitical echoes.
So the man who was killed, Andriy Parby, he was a really big deal, a key voice for Ukraine aligning itself more with Europe. And because of that, Ukrainian authorities are not treating this like just some simple crime. They're alleging it was a carefully, meticulously planned attack with links back to Russia, which instantly turns a personal tragedy into a major international incident. All right, for this next headline, we need to pause for a second and look at a specific word, because the language here is so important. This is the UN's official definition of genocide. And the key phrase, the absolute core of it, is intent to destroy. That context is absolutely essential for understanding what's being alleged in Gaza. And boom, there it is. This is a massive escalation in the language being used. A prominent group of actual genocide experts has formally declared that, from their perspective, Israel's military actions meet that very specific, very high legal bar. This statement just injects an absolutely explosive charge into an already incredibly fierce debate.
And still in Gaza, there's another number that's causing a massive outcry around the world. We're talking about the number of journalists who have been killed. At first, the number was reported as over 200.
But get this, independent analysis is now saying that number is even higher, 278 journalists and media workers. And this isn't just local reporters. We're talking about people from major international networks. It really drives home the fact that no one covering this conflict is safe. And the world's media is not staying silent. You've got more than 250 media organizations from over 70 different countries all coming together in a front-page protest. They're demanding accountability, they're demanding protection for the people who risk their lives just to bring us the news. This is a crisis not just for those individuals, but really for press freedom itself.
Okay, so let's pull back from the front lines for a minute. We're going to step into the world of high-stakes diplomacy and finance. This is where a different kind of pressure is being applied as global powers jockey for influence, and even economic stability is being called into question.
So if you look at the SCO Summit, it's like watching a diplomatic fault line crack open right in front of us. On one side, you have China and Russia talking about rejecting a Cold War mentality. And then on the other side, you've got India's Prime Minister Modi being very careful to stress cooperation and diplomacy. We're literally watching two divergent worldviews play out in real time.
And it's not just about military alliances and politics. We're shifting now to something that affects all of our wallets, geoeconomics. And this is a pretty jaw-dropping warning from one of the most powerful financial figures on the planet, Christine Lagarde. She's basically saying that political talk in the U.S., specifically aiming criticism at the independence of the Federal Reserve, that's not just a domestic issue. She says it has the potential to destabilize the entire global financial system.
So why is everyone so worried? What's the big deal? Well, economists are basically saying that if you start politicizing the Fed, you could completely shatter investor confidence. The idea that officials could just be dismissed creates massive instability. And the ultimate fear is that it could cripple the fight against inflation. It's proof that political rhetoric can have some really severe economic consequences.
All right, so we've looked at pressure between nations. Now we're going to turn inward to see what happens when the pressure comes from inside a country's own borders. We're heading to Indonesia, a country that's right now grappling with some widespread and pretty violent civil unrest.
You can really see how this all unfolded in Indonesia. It started with a spark, public anger over government spending. But that spark quickly turned into a fire, igniting deadly riots that shook the economy. And as the protests grew, the demands changed, growing to include huge systemic police reform. But the state's response? A harsh crackdown, which has trapped the country in this tragic cycle of protest and suppression.
And this is the whole point, right? None of these things are happening in a vacuum. An earthquake in Afghanistan, an assassination in Ukraine, protests in Indonesia. They might seem disconnected, but they're all signs. They're all symptoms of a global system that is seriously under strain. So when you lay it all out like this, you can really see the pattern. We've got pressure from every direction, From the earth itself, from political violence, human rights crises, geopolitical posturing, economic uncertainty, and civil unrest. It feels like every single one of these fracture points in our global system is active all at the same time.
And that leaves us with a really big and, frankly, a pretty critical question. In a world that seems to be cracking apart in so many different places at once, what's holding it all together? Where do we even begin to look for stability and cooperation?